Hi everyone, I'm just going to wait another couple of minutes just to see if there's anyone else that's joining and then we'll get started. Okay, so hi everybody, thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Laura and I'm Head of Sales and Marketing here at Wood for Trees. Before John takes you through the State of the Sector half-year update, I'm just going to give you a quick run-through of Insight Hub and benchmarks. We've blocked out an hour for the session, but I think you'll probably get some time back in your day, as it probably won't take as long as that. As we go through the webinar, if you've got any questions, if you submit them in the sidebar on your screen, we'll pick them up at the end and try and answer everything that comes through. Also, if you don't yet have a copy of the report, you can download this from the handout section in the control panel here as well, or just contact me afterwards and I can send it over to you. So to start with, what's Insight Hub? For those of you that aren't aware of it or haven't heard of it previously, Insight Hub or iHub is an online reporting, benchmarking and insights portal built here at Wood for Trees, specifically for our not-for-profit clients. It compiles, visualizes and democratizes industry-leading insights for organizations looking to boost supporter engagement and maximize return on fundraising activities. The platform currently has 15 reports, which span 44 pages of valuable insights. We host the data from over 10 million supporters and their corresponding 140 million transactions. While most organisations do collect and store countless gigabytes of customer and transactional supporter data, few have taken the necessary steps to unlock this data's full potential. Insight Hub will extract core data from your systems and transform into not only interesting but actionable insights. This process all takes place within our CCDM or core charity data model. In essence, we take the data from your CRM systems, either through a direct extraction or file loads provided. We run this data through a series of transformations to categorize and aggregate into our core charity data model. And then we extract valuable insights from this transformed data and render them to you via an online portal, enabling you to share these insights across your whole organization at any time. So why choose iHub? The reports are available instantly in a secure environment whenever you may need them, night or day. You can share your findings internally within your team and across the wider organisation as well. It gives you the ability to get a better understanding of your supporters and to allow more informed decision making. That can then obviously lead on to maximising your ROI across your activities. Internally, we're continually developing and improving the reports, and we're welcoming feedback from all users all the time to feed into that roadmap. Having the reports hosted by us reduces your internal dependencies and overheads as well. And of course, as we'll go on to, it allows you to compare yourselves to others in the sector through the benchmarking reports. So once we've got the data and it's stored safely within the CCDM, we can really start to do some clever things to take your organisation's data understanding to the next level. This is where the benchmarking comes in, arguably Insight's most exciting and unique feature. As part of the CCDM loading process, we extract, anonymise and aggregate key metrics for our benchmarking datasets. All clients on the platform are then able to safely and securely compare their own performance against that of the sector. This is a uniquely powerful process, as all the metrics are calculated from transactional, undisputable data rather than the traditional survey-driven approach, ensuring reliability in the comparisons. All of today's findings have been lifted directly from Insight Hub benchmark reports and should give you a flavour of what's possible in the platform. So I'm going to hand over to John now, and he's going to take you through the update for the 6-month point in the year and any questions as we go through, as I say, please just put them in the panel at the side and we'll pick them up at the end. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for the intro. Hopefully everybody can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Laura, can you just verify? Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Just to make sure I'm showing the right thing. It's always good. Yeah, so as Laura says, what I'm going to take you through now is the state of the sector. We released our first report at the beginning of the year. This is an update from 6 months of data that we've loaded into Insight Hub. It's refreshed monthly, so we can keep up to date, and it's interesting to see from this, the trends that we saw through 2020 and how they've extended into 2021. Everything I show you today is available in the report, so please do download and sort of go through that at your leisure. 3 areas that we're going to cover. First of all, income. So what's going on with income across the sector and how that's going. Then a little bit of a look at supporters, looking at how the volume of recruitment, but then also how that affects file sizes and the types of supporters that we're currently recruiting. The third section is a new addition to the report. We didn't have this available in January, but we've recently added lifetime value, cross-sell and regular giving attrition reports to the benchmark functionality in Insight Hub, and through that we're now able to give some top-level benchmarks on those very key metrics to see how things are going. So on to income. Before I go into this section, we're just going to put up a quick poll to see across the attendees we've got here, has your income gone up over the last 6 months compared to last year? Has it gone down or has it stayed the same? So hopefully you should see a poll appearing on your screen. Okay, looks like we got most of the results in there. Interesting. It seems pretty much a split. I don't know if we can show them up on the screen, but around a third of you are saying income has gone up. A third are saying gone down. A few saying stayed the same, and then also roughly about a third saying they don't know. So obviously for those people, I'd encourage you getting a hold of Insight Hub. But yeah, interesting results there, and shows that there are differences across the sector, and what we're going to show you is an overview across a number of different charities. So we'll aggregate out across that. But at a top level, what we've seen for the first 6 months of 2021 compared to 2020 is that actually overall income has gone up by about 7% on last year. So that's a great result, obviously reflective for some of you, less so for others. If we look at that on a monthly basis, we actually see that there's been a strong performance across all the months of the first half of the year. So pretty much all of them are performing above levels of last year. It's interesting that it shows sort of pre and post pandemic. Obviously lockdown hit around March last year. And we did actually see initially some increases in income through emergency appeals and so on through the second quarter of 2020. And what we can see there is that actually, we're still seeing that good performance through into 2021. At a product level, looking at some of the sort of key top level products, it seems, as we've seen and reported previously, that one-off donations have been the big winner. So they're up up 11% on last year, and we'll see other factors that show, you know, has been a real uptake of one-off giving through direct mail and things like that. Other products are sort of down slightly, although, you know, still holding up and still looking comparatively, you know, strong against the performance of last year, particularly with the pandemic hitting. So I'm going to now go into some of those individual products and see the sort of monthly profile for those. So we can see for one-off donations a really strong start to the year in Q1. Q2 is still strong. I think that those figures are showing down a little bit on last year, which, as I mentioned, was Q2 was very strong due to a lot of the, excuse me, emergency giving at the start of the pandemic. So still an overall strong performance from one-off donations. Community fundraising, fairly similar levels to last year. January looks a bit low, but on the whole, the other months are holding up. What will be interesting to see, you know, as you can see on that chart there, the strength of community fundraising and events at the back end of last year through all the digital events that took place. It'll be really interesting to see whether that continues to pan out through the next few months of this year. Regular giving, you know, not much movement here, and I guess that really shows, excuse me, the resilience of regular giving. We saw an initial dip in March last year as the pandemic hit, but then that's really been pretty flat through the rest of the year and into the first 6 months of this year. And then finally, gaming, which has shown the biggest drop with a decline across all months, and we've seen that sort of last year in the results of last year and following on into this year. So it seems overall that, you know, a lot of the trends that we saw through the report on 2020 have continued through into this year, and you know, does that mean that they'll carry on further, or as we come now out and start to emerge out of the restrictions, will we see sort of further trends come to bear? Your guess is probably as good as mine on that one. Finally, on the income side of things, a quick look at the sort of 4 key channels that drive a lot of this income, and again, similar picture to what we've been seeing. So digital, it's a fairly static picture, but digital continues to grow, and you know, we saw that growth at the end of last year. Direct mail continues to be you know, work well and has built on the growth of last year. And we do starting to see a little bit of comeback from direct dialogue, which I'll touch on a little bit later with some of the regular giving figures. So that's it from an income perspective. I'm now going to go on to show you a little bit about supporters, but as before with the income section, I'd like to just ask you, from a supporter perspective, has your recruitment gone up this year? Has it gone down? Looks like we don't actually have a stayed the same option on this one, so you'll have to select up or down or I don't know. If you could put your answers in there, it'd be interesting to see what we see from that. Just waiting for those to come in. Getting a few more. Let's see how we go. Okay, very similar picture that we're seeing there. So again, it's pretty much a third split, with a third of you saying up, a third of you saying down, and a third of you don't know. So shows again the split and the different effects on different charities across the sector. So what are we seeing at that overall level? Well, we actually see quite a big growth across the charities that we're benchmarking, and recruitment has gone up by, you know, quite a substantial 58%. You see there from the product breakdown that this has really been driven by one-off donations, as I've talked about, but also a lot of people in community fundraising. And both these are, again, extensions of trends that we saw in 2020. The community fundraising one is interesting. We're seeing a lot of supporters come in. As you saw previously, that's not necessarily coming through in terms of income, and that's something that I'll look at a little bit later. From a channel perspective, as I said, it really is, you know, the continued rise of digital. So digital is up 40% in terms of recruitment of supporters on last year, and direct mail phenomenal, 3 times as high as it was. If you remember, we're comparing the first 6 months of this year compared to the first 6 months of last year, so that included Q1 pre-pandemic, when, you know, direct mail was probably not sort of working as well as it has been over the last 12 months or so. Looking at that in terms of a monthly breakdown, I just wanted to show this, as it's interesting to see in those last two couple of months, May and June, you see that sort of return of direct dialogue coming back into the picture, which is really encouraging to see. A little bit of a sort of blip there in January, as some direct dialogue was allowed, fell again, but then certainly returning back. What's that mean? So we're recruiting a lot more supporters. Does that mean we're sort of growing file sizes? And the good news there is that at an overall level, certainly yes, the overall number of active supporters is up 2.5%. The number of new recruits still continues to be above those that are lapsing, driving that growth. And actually, we're now at a higher level of active supporters than we were at the beginning of the pandemic. So a sort of real bounce back there, and actually gone higher. And looking down into a product level, we can really see, again, you know, the success of one-off giving, and how people have really sort of continued to engage with charities, give to charities, and that's been one of the key routes available to them. And so they have done so, continued to get more and more new supporters in, and file sizes really growing across the board. Community fundraising, we did see a sort of really big spike Q3, Q4 last year. That continued into Q1 this year, but has since dropped. So actually we've seen a sort of slight decline in the file there. I'm not really sure what's driving that, and as I said earlier, it'd be interesting to see how that pans out through Q3 and Q4 this year. And regular giving and gaming files, I've put these together. They're sort of continuing to sort of fall. I think, you know, regular giving is fairly resilient, and we hope to see that sort of bounce back a little bit, but there does seem to be certainly a sort of underlying trend in terms of what's going on with gaming. In terms of who we're recruiting, there seems to have definitely been a shift here that we saw a little bit at the end of 2020, but I think is even more pronounced here, and it's a shift to a different demographic, really, younger supporters, and coming from slightly less sort of affluent areas. This is largely driven by the community fundraising recruitment that I talked about earlier, and there definitely seems to be a different type of supporter engaging with the different types of events that have been sort of innovated and put on over the last 12 months. To a less extent, that's also happening in the gaming audience, but it's really driven by that community fundraising audience. Worth noting here that obviously the typical profile still remains older and more affluent. We're not saying that supporters are more likely to be young and less affluent now. It's just there is starting to see a shift and new audiences. What it shows is new audiences, new types of supporters engaging with charities through some of the innovation that's gone on over the last year. A continued shift towards more females giving. We see this time and time again. That most donations come in from women rather than men. Contactability is a sort of interesting one. So we're also able to track that and see what this is a combination of whether you have the contact details for people and also whether you have the consent for them. They've remained fairly static, although there is a slight increase in email as things become more and more digital, which is encouraging. If I look deeper into some of those audiences I've just touched on in terms of the profile, we can see some of that profile being reflected in the ways that people are asking to or giving consent to be contacted through. So with community fundraising, there is a massive increase in the percentage of email consent being given, obviously reflective of the channels that people are engaging that through, potentially due to that sort of younger audience as well, that we're really starting to see sort of that email engagement, which needs to be continued and enhanced. And gamers also sort of showing a similar thing there, as well as an increase in SMS consent. So that's it from sort of income and supporter perspective. As I said at the beginning of this, we've got a new section which is great to be able to show in here, which is looking at the engagement of supporters, what that means longer term. So looking at longer term metrics such as lifetime value, cross-sell and retention, particularly on the regular giving file. So what we've done here is look at the recruits from 2020 to see how they've continued to give through into 2021 and compared those to the cohort pre-pandemic of 2019 to see how they continue to give through the first 6 months of their journey once they had been recruited, and see what sort of differences we see through that. So trying to get a gauge of these new audiences that came in through 2020, through the pandemic, through the changes, how are they starting to look as we continue to engage and nurture them. And the good news there is that the value of these supporters is actually up overall. So from an average of £53 in the first 6 months that 2019 supporters were giving, that is up now to £59 in those first 6 months of their journey. So sort of really encouraging signs that actually we've been able to engage with supporters through 2020 and also drive value through that. Looking at this at a product level, it shows really again, and I seem to keep returning to this, but one-off donations are the sort of big winners here, and we've seen a big increase in the value that those supporters are giving. So up from £38 to £56. Regular giving shows a slight increase, and gaming shows a slight drop. But the sort of, I guess, one sort of negative side from the picture that is emerging here is the value from community fundraising and from the people recruited and engaging with those events. It's a bit double-edged here because, as we saw earlier, huge increase in the volume of supporters being recruited through different types of events, digital events and so on, but we're certainly seeing that those are not coming through at the moment with the same sort of value. So overall income, as I showed you earlier, is reasonably flat, but that's driven by more supporters being given less value. And I think the challenge here and what charities really need to look at is how they can, you know, really now engage and nurture these new audiences and get them giving and engaging with the charity long term. Cross-sell has also actually increased dramatically, as we put here, up 350%, which is quite phenomenal. I'm going to put a note of caution on that, though, that a lot of that is being driven by some, I think, a bit of anomaly in the gaming side of things that we're looking at, and where their cross-sell has gone up from 2% to 10%. One of the problems with benchmarking is you're going to get in these anomalies. It's not always easy to sort of tease out what was really going on there. But I think what we can see even from the other products, so one-off donation cross-sell is up, regular giving cross-sell is up. So, you know, although I'd take a note of caution on that overall extreme increase, there are signs that cross-sell is increasing across a number of products in the portfolio. Again, the exception there is community fundraising, and I think that's obviously connected to that value metric that I've just showed you. And again, you know, the need to engage and try and continue these new community fundraising audiences with your charities and make sure they continue to give. And my final piece of insight for the day, as I said, we did say this would probably be short, but we'll open it up to questions for you in a minute, is the regular giving. And again, another piece of good news, really, that attrition rates in those first 6 months of supporters recruited in 2020 has dropped. So we're losing 23% of the file in the first 6 months rather than 32%, which was seen in 2019. Put a sort of caveat and note of caution on that, I think volumes, as we saw, volumes of recruitment are down slightly. Obviously, direct dialogue is notoriously has high attrition rates, and if that's less part of the picture, then we are going to naturally see a drop. So probably need to delve a little bit deeper into those figures to really understand what's driving that trend. And that's something that we'll look to do in the future as we bring more and more metrics into the report. But you know, at that top level, again, some encouraging news. So just like to, I guess, hand it over to you guys. Overall, I think, you know, an encouraging picture. Hopefully some things that you can take insight from and take back to your charities and see how you can use those insights. But if anyone's got any questions for me, now's your chance.
Yeah, John, we do have a couple actually. So first of all, how
sounds so surprised, Laura.
I'm trying to find really difficult ones to put you on the spot. How has the LTV been calculated in the reports?
So yeah, as I touched on, probably calling it lifetime value is it's not truly that. It's the first 6 month value of a supporter's giving. So what value do they give from their point of recruitment, their first gift, through those first 6 months. So we're trying to get by doing that, we get a like for like comparison of the early trends of supporters recruited in 2019 versus those recruited in 2020. So somebody recruited at the end of 2020 in December, say, what we're looking at is their first 6 months of giving from December through to June this year. For somebody recruited at the beginning of 2020, we're looking at their first 6 months of giving from January 2020 through to June 2020. So we're getting that like for like comparison. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Another question: Do we have that high value income split by sub-channel within either the reports or the benchmark?
We do, yes. Yeah, we all of these figures, information that I've shown you here, we can delve down deeper and deeper. Obviously, we've shown the top level figures here, but yeah, all of the products can be split by channel and vice versa. So you would be able to look at drill into further detail through the Insight Hub benchmark reports.
Okay, so would that include major donor versus trust income, for example?
Yes, so yeah, we also break down those top level product categories that I've shown you. We'll break down into categories below that, and yeah, major donor is broken down into the high value giving is broken down into major donor, trust, and corporate income, and regular giving is broken down into sort of membership, sponsorship, standard, direct. DD giving as well. So yeah, those things, further breakdowns are available in the full benchmark reports.
Okay, and I guess following on from that, what can organisations, what input can they have to decide the categorisation of those products?
So for the benchmarking, obviously we have to have consistent categories so that we can do sort of good like for like comparison. So that is fairly fixed, although you know we're always open to sort of thinking about how we can cut and dice that information further. From a purely your own reporting perspective, then that can be more flexible to match how you report internally and so on. So I guess two answers to that question.
Okay, thanks. Can we provide kind of an overview of the size and types of charities that are included within the report?
If people are interested in discussing with us, we can give further breakdowns on that. It is a range of charities at the moment, different sizes, different sectors. So there is a fair sort of split of different types. And one thing, again, I think we've spoken about this before on previous webinars, but one thing that we will look to do and would like to do in the future is give you the ability to cut and dice by those dimensions as well. So look at charities of a similar size to you, or look at charities in the same sort of sector as you. That's not available at the moment, but it's a broad split of different types of charities who are, you know, raising income in different ways, different programs, focus on regular giving, focus on gaming, focus on community fundraising. So there's a fair mix in there.
Okay, brilliant, thanks. I guess a big question to finish on. What do you see as the trends to look out for? What do you think will be happening for the rest of the year based on what we've seen so far?
Thanks. Not sure I can really answer that. Obviously, it's a question we get asked time and time again. It really is crystal ball stuff. You know, particularly in the sort of environment that we're in, with things changing all the time. I think the important thing is the measuring and monitoring and making sure you're on top of those trends and being able to react to them as you see them happen. So to me, probably the big one that's come out of this report is that the community fundraising and the change in dynamic that's going on there. You know, will that continue? I think, you know, certainly we'll see a lot of it continue. A lot of these new events will continue to carry on, but there will be a return to traditional, more traditional community fundraising events. You know, the cake sales and so on that we haven't been able to do. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see, and I guess if I knew the answer to that, it would be very valuable. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
Okay, we won't hold you to anything. Okay, well, I don't think we have any more questions, but if anybody does want to send anything or think of anything afterwards, then please feel free to fire over an email. I think that the address is in the chat, or you can contact us via the website as well if you don't know any of us directly. But thank you, John, for taking us through the report. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining us this morning.
Okay, just one last thing to add, Laura, before we go. We have got a very quick survey which we'd ask you to fill in once you leave the once we finish here. It's not asking you a whole load of questions and about how you feel and what so on. It's one question. We just want to know what sort of KPIs and metrics you would feel would be useful to benchmark and see in these kind of reports. So really valuable feedback for us to sort of know what we can present back to you next time. So would really appreciate you taking a few seconds just to fill that in. Yeah, thanks for attending.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.